because I use social media anyway, I'm like just always on it, and I know that it's bad for me. And like I see these memes of like, it's okay just to switch off, and it's okay to delete these apps from your phone. I'm like, no, it's not.
Welcome to Confessions of a Social Media Manager with me, Erin from Agora Pulse, and today I have with me Rachel Flenley. Rachel is the social media manager for Anthony Nolan, a charity that helps people with blood cancer who need stem cell or bone marrow transplant. The charity was established in 1974. As part of her role, Rachel manages their Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and soon to be TikTok. Rachel's journey to her current role has been varied, but like many social media managers today, she started off her journey in marketing. Her initial roles were in the arts and entertainment industries, and they covered everything from Spotlight to Nuts Magazine, do you remember Nuts Magazine, to social media for West End theatres. In and amongst that, she has cut her teeth at an array of London-based agencies. Her current role at Anthony Nolan is one that she is very much enjoying, having long admired their work. She was initially hired for a 3-month contract, but of course the pandemic hit, and she was made a permanent team member and has managed, under her rule, to expand the social media team. When asked to describe her social media career so far, she said, unexpected, challenging, and exhausting, in a good way. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. That was nice.
It's okay. I try and make people feel good when they start, and then we'll get into the questions. But I just want to let you explain, really, what do you do at Anthony Nolan as a social media manager?
Sure. So my role is predominantly looking after like our organic social media content. So I don't really have much involvement with paid, other than making sure that we're aligning on stuff that we're doing. So my role is much more about that sort of community engagement side of social media. Because of the nature of our work, we have lots of really loyal and invested followers, people who have personal stories because they've had family members with blood cancer, people who have had stem cell transplants, people who are just on the register hoping one day to be called up to donate their stem cells, etc., etc. So it really feels like a proper community and almost like a kind of that family sense. Mm-hmm. So my role is to kind of keep that going, and coming up with content ideas that will be really engaging to keep our current audiences engaged, but also attract new people, because we know that, for instance, there is a massive lack of diversity on the stem cell register. So we want to be able to, and one of our focuses over the next kind of few months is how do we attract people who aren't white to join the stem cell register, because they will give patients of similar ethnic backgrounds a better chance of survival after transplant. And, at the moment we're a very white organisation, so that's kind of a challenge that's one of mine to look at, along with kind of other people in the team. So yeah, my role is quite emotional, I would say. It's, we're dealing with real people and real stories every day. And it feels much less like marketing than previous social media or previous roles I've had, and much more like that community engagement that I think is fairly unique to the organisation. And I think to social media as an industry, I don't think there are many other organisations or brands who have kind of harnessed and built that sense of family amongst essentially online people that they don't know.
It sounds like such a shift from where you started your career in social to where you are now. Like, we talk about KPIs in social media so much, but your KPIs are real, like getting people's lives changed. So it's like, your top line goal is to get people donating. Everything, sort of all the work that you do, community management, content creation, gears towards that. So I'll be really interested to hear how you've navigated that, and then also just the skill set you kind of need for something so particular. If someone asked you, though, about starting a career in social media right now, what would be the first piece of advice you would give them?
I think I would probably say it's okay to feel overwhelmed, but also try and remain open-minded. I think I certainly know, as someone who did all of this organisation and social media by myself for a year, there are so many like new features and new platforms and new things that people will come to you and be like, oh, have you seen this? And oh, have you seen that? And it's really easy to kind of go, oh my God, we need to be everywhere all at once and all now, without really thinking long term or big picture wise. And it's really easy, I think, to feel overwhelmed by the constant feed of social media, and feeling like you need to know everything that's happening in the social media industry and on every social media platform. Something that I am getting better at is asking for help, basically. And I think that is a skill that is across discipline, but very much so in social media, because so many people use it as just a, pedestrian. And so they've got some knowledge. And so, if you do need some help, or if you do need some more creative ideas, or, you mentioned we're kind of foraying into TikTok, like if you need people to get up and make a TikTok for you, that's okay. It doesn't have to just be all on your shoulders, because I think social media can be a department that's really under-resourced. And I'd say it definitely is at Anthony Nolan. And so, you can only do so much. And I think that would probably be what I say to people, that, try not to get overwhelmed. Ask for help if you need it.
I love the term pedestrian when it comes to like defining people who work in social and who don't work in social. The rest are pedestrians. That's such a good way of doing that. I'm going to steal that. But like we were saying about being overwhelmed, like definitely I know from previous work in the public sector that, when, compared to consumer brands, the social media teams are tiny, like super tiny. And, you do feel very much more like, you get one-man bands in consumer places. I've talked to people now, they're like, I am a one-man band still, but like, the external resources are much easier to acquire. So say if you wanted to get an agency on board to do something, the process to get that is probably much quicker because money can be thrown. Whereas, public sector, in the charity sector, all the money has to count. Like there isn't any time or room for any sort of stray sort of spending. So could I ask, so like when it comes to feeling overwhelmed and not being overwhelmed, what have you put in place at the moment to like ensure that you do not get overwhelmed in your current role?
I'm still not very good at it. I still definitely do find myself getting overwhelmed. I think largely because I joined an organisation in the pandemic, or at least just at the beginning of a pandemic, and have spent a year and a half working from home, trying to run successful social media accounts for a charity that has been has been on the front line. So I think there are definitely still moments of overwhelm, absolutely. But I think something that I have really benefited from is having a really good relationship with my manager and having really open and honest conversations with them, and also my peers. So despite the fact that I've been working remotely from these people for 18 months, I feel like I have made some connection with other colleagues. So I have been able to say, actually, this feels like a bit too much. And having, breaking it down or escalating things so that I've got someone in my corner to say, Rachel can't do that now. Like she will get there, but it's not going to happen now. And people listen. I think something that's great about Anthony Nolan as an organisation is it's a really encouraging and welcoming place to work anyway. So people do understand if things get too much, but they won't know unless you tell them. So they will continue. If, I'm sure it's true for many organisations, but if you look like you're coping, and if, you're being a swan and you're gliding, but underneath you're this, they're just going to keep throwing stuff at you because they're like, well, she can do it. And I very much got into that position last summer where I was just working all hours because I was like, this needs to happen, this needs to happen, this needs to happen. And everyone was like, she's great, Rachel's fantastic, so glad we hired her. And, on the inside, I'm like, I don't know how much more of this I can do. And, and it takes, for me, it took a good manager being like, I don't think this is working. Like, surely you can't manage this much workload. For me to go, oh, yeah, no, actually, I don't think I can. Like, yeah, I think we need to chill out. And so they're able then to have conversations with leadership and with other people who can, cascade down to their teams, go, let's just ease the pressure off Rachel for a minute. She's got so much on. And people listen. And I think that's something, and I think, I don't know whether that's necessarily unique to Anthony Nolan, whether other organisations are like that, but once I had sort of put my hands up, there was very much, it wasn't the whole like, oh, she's rubbish, she can't cope. It was like, oh God, okay, yeah, sorry, we don't need this right now. You decide when you can do it. That's fine.
That's very interesting because, I mean, often social media managers are at the tail end of everything in the business. So even though you're the first to communicate everything to your audience, you are more than often not at the end of the decision-making process. So everyone's kind of come up with a campaign, have not always considered the social aspect, and then suddenly you have to make some sort of social campaign baby thing out of this thing that they've given you, and you have to carve something out of it, and it's like, and it's not always the most efficient way of working. And I'm just glad that you managed to sort of, put your foot down and put your boundaries in place to say, look, this does not work for me at the moment. What are you going to do about it? And I imagine that you mentioned that you had an additional member of your team, so you've got now a social media assistant. Was that part of the process, as in like you putting it out to the company, we need an assistant, I can't do everything, and it's a role that's completely valid in the company?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to have joined the organisation when those sorts of conversations were already taking place, but then because of the pandemic we had a recruitment freeze, which is why I wasn't made permanent until a year ago. And so then it sort of was like, well, I know that this social media assistant role is happening, but I also still need to do this job in the meantime. So for a year, I was still doing that by myself with this like hope of it'll all be fine when the assistant arrives. It'll all be much better when the assistant arrives. Assistant has now been in post since April, and he's great. He's fantastic, but there is still a huge amount of demand. Yeah, I think it is. You're absolutely right. Social media is absolutely an afterthought, and I'm on a mission to get my seat at the table, as it were, at the very beginning of campaign discussions and, planning activity in all of the teams that we work with. Because even if we end up not needing social media for that specific campaign, I need to be the one to say it. And I need to go, yeah, this sounds like a great campaign. Our social media audiences aren't going to bite, so there's no point. Rather than this whole campaign being planned, studio being briefed on stuff, being sent loads of assets that are in completely the wrong format, going, can you put that out on Twitter? Can you put this out on Facebook? Can you put this out on Instagram? I'm like, no, no, I can't. So, and actually it's, at the moment, I'm in the process of finishing a new social media strategy for the organisation, and it'll be the first time that they've had a strategy for God knows how long. Because it has been such a bolt-on, which is like, oh, we'll just also put this on social, rather than there being actually like hang on, what do our audiences respond to? Who do we want to try and target next? What are they going to engage with? Like, none of that thinking, it seems, has been done before, which has been a great opportunity for me, because it means that I've come in, spent a huge amount of time trying to put this thing together, hopefully in the next couple of months be in the process of rolling it all out, and be able to tell people like, no, this is how it works now. And if you don't like it, then that's very much a you problem.
Yeah, I empathize exactly with what you've said, and also experiencing a little trauma about what you've said in the conversations that you're having right now, because the conversation I have had in places before where it has, as you said, been the bolt on, and you've got different departments competing for your attention, and all of them are worthy, but not all of them are in the exact right shape to put out on social. And it's like, you are, not only are you community manager, you're content creator, you are gatekeeper of those channels, and you're the social media expert. So it's like, yeah, it's very much keeping on top of social as a concept, but also keeping on top of what your sector and what they're doing and what your competitors are doing. So, obviously charities, they have competitors. So you're looking at other people and you're like, okay, well, they're doing this, what actually works for us? So I totally understand the circus that's going on in your brain.
Circus is a very, very good analogy. Yeah, circus is absolutely right.
So that's kind of like the top line overview of what you're doing. What is just a typical day like for you?
So I was thinking about this, and I mean, it's such a cliche, like no 2 days are the same, but they aren't. A lot of my time is actually spent in meetings, and just like despairing at how many emails I get. Before Jordan, my social media assistant, before he joined, a lot of my time was taken up with like writing copy and saying to various people that the image that they'd sent was the wrong size, and all of that sort of stuff, which takes a long time.
Yeah, it's like it's the most granular work of social media that people just like underestimate takes as much time as it does.
Yeah, and chasing people for stuff like this, so much of it is them saying, oh, we need this thing last minute. I'm like, right, okay, can you get this and this over? And then the day that they wanted it to go out comes and goes, and they still haven't sent you anything. You're like, where's the urgency now that it's on you and not me to deliver something? Anyway, so yeah, a lot of my time is spent in meetings. Most recently, it's been building this strategy. We went through a restructure around this time last year, and since had a new our whole communications team has been formed as a result of that. So we've only really been a proper team since January. So we're in the process of a lot of planning for how we work as a team as well. And I, along with our PR manager and our internal comms lead, are kind of like a trio of, right, let's just sort communications out for this organisation. So that's also quite a chunk of my time, is like separate to the social media side of things. But how do we as a team really establish ourselves as the experts in our field? Compare it to like playing Tetris. I think it's a lot of like all of these things are coming in, and I'm just making sure that they all fit in the right place.
So you've mentioned, you were working on quite a few campaigns. So is there anything exciting that Anthony Nolan is working on at the moment that you can tell us about?
We're gearing up towards a youth campaign in January. So I mentioned before, we are lacking in diversity on our register. And that's not to say that there's like blame or anything. It's just a case of the fact that more white people have joined the register than any other ethnic background. So we just need to rebalance that. And our youth campaign in the new year will very much be focused on that and generally the youth population. So you can join the Anthony Nolan Stem Cell Register from the age of 16. It's really easy. It's a simple, you just get some swabs sent in the post. You put them around your mouth, just post them off. It's much less invasive than a COVID lateral flow test. Like, it's no drama whatsoever. And then basically you're added onto this register of names, and if someone needs a stem cell transplant and you're a DNA match for them, you go and you get hooked up to a machine for a few hours and get fed, and then your stem cells are transported off and given to someone whose life you might save. Like, it's a huge thing for what it takes 2 minutes of your time. And so it's quite a challenge to communicate that with a younger audience of our kind of like 16 to 24-year-old like sweet spot. Because you can be like, oh yeah, do this thing and save a life, and it's not really very tangible. I don't really understand. I don't understand the connection between putting some cotton wool in my mouth and then one day potentially being the person who saves someone's life. Like, that journey is massive, and it won't happen for everyone. I think the current stat is like 1 in 890 people on the register will get called up to donate. So, I've been on the register since I was 25, so six years. Never been called up. Some people you stay on the register until you're 61. Some people are never called up in their lifetime. So it's one of those things that you're like, this could be amazing. So do it. And so that's why we're, going into TikTok, and we're going to do much more work with influencers. We're kind of starting that now with a like test campaign, which is targeted exclusively at people from minority ethnic backgrounds, but of all ages, so 16 to 30 rather than specifically young. And then January will be any ethnicity, but that younger audience who, we don't really know a huge amount about yet, but we're doing research into what they're using, what they're engaging with, what type of content they want to see, so that we can try and align ourselves in such a way that isn't like a, hey, we're cool and young, do our thing, like cringe, but in a way that they feel good about themselves. This was super easy to do, and I'm going to get all my mates to do it. Like, that's kind of where we're at.
So TikTok really does seem the best place to actually like start doing that for you, because it's just obviously the youth movement on TikTok is huge.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, and things like hashtag challenges and duets and those sorts of features, we can absolutely capitalize on to be like if there was a hashtag challenge that we had set up that got loads and loads of people joining the stem cell register and it went viral. I mean, the dream, obviously everyone's dreaming up top, like, how can we go viral?
I have to hear that one more time.
Yeah, it would, like, there's real potential there.
It's definitely a fine line, trying to not attack, but approach these newer channels with that has its own culture, really, because TikTok moves so quickly, and you know, the most innocuous user doing something different can turn into a meme within a week, and you now got a new set of discourse and a new sort of a trend to tap into because one person from somewhere decided to say a word in a funny way, and that's it now. So I completely commend and do think it's a good idea from one social media manager to another. As a social media manager, what does success looks like for you on social media?
I think so I heard speaking of analogies, I heard a really good one a while back of someone who has like a relatively good Instagram following, like in the tens of thousands, like upper tens of thousands region. Mm-hmm. And she was talking about the fact that she was like, I don't know why I've become so obsessed with it, because it's like inviting loads of people around to your house, them coming, and then you just like opening the door and being like, anyone else? Like, and ignoring everyone who's inside and who's dedicated, you know, their time to come over. You're like, so much focus has been on, we need to grow our audience, we need to grow our audience, we need to grow our audience. And I don't necessarily see that as success. What I see as success is our existing audiences being so engaged with us and loving what we do so much that they share and that they do the work for us to some degree. And that we then become a brand that is very much like, love what Anthony Nolan are doing on social. Like, I'm not fussed about us going, oh, you know, we haven't really got any new followers in a while. Like, yeah, but our engagement rate of our content has gone up, has increased. Like, that's great. Or, you know, if we're thinking about it campaign to campaign, what's our objective? Do we want people to click a link to do something? Is it to sign up to the register, or is it to donate money, or is it to sign up to do a fundraising event for us? If they're doing that bit, we're doing our job right, and social media is the right channel for it. Retweets, likes don't mean anything in that respect unless we're getting more shares, unless those shares are turning into action. I think my biggest challenge certainly has been to take people beyond those metrics of how many retweets did it get, or how many likes on Instagram did it get, because social media is so fickle and so random. Like, a tweet that you post one day at 6 o'clock will get 5 retweets, and then you do it the next day at 6 o'clock and it gets 100. You're like, that don't really know why that happened. Something clicked, or the right people were on social at the right time. And I think that's certainly true for, in my role with organic, is that you can't predict, you can't target. So you've just got to look at what's performing well, really hone on that, push the boat out a little, you know, where you can. Remember that social media is a playground. You know, if something doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. You're not going to go from 30,000 followers to 0 followers unless something really awful has happened, you know. But if you've decided to slightly change your copy a bit, or change your tone of voice a touch, or maybe, you know, use a different type of video than you have done previously, that's okay. See if it works. So I think success for me is keeping the people that you have happy and engaged, especially with Anthony Nolan, because we have built this really strong community. You don't want to just ignore them. No. And also not being afraid to push the boat out every now and then and try something new. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it does work, that's great.
Right now, seems to be the shadow above a lot of social media managers at the moment, organic versus paid, what they should be doing, how they should be focused on it. Why is it that your role is just focused on organic? Do you have a paid person on board? Do you get an agency on board to do that kind of stuff?
I have to say, when I first joined the organisation, obviously I was only meant to be there as a 3-month contract, so I kind of kept most of my opinions to myself. But I found it really bizarre that I didn't do anything to do, like the role didn't expect anything paid other than boosting if a post is doing well or if we feel like it. There is a digital acquisition manager in the organisation who handles all paid. So that covers social, search, everything that is online that you pay money for, essentially. And her role is, because I think something that I was actually having a conversation with a colleague of mine not that long ago was, we are a bit of a bolt-on organisation. I think we've kind of, because we've been around for, well, since the 70s, obviously that's way before any form of digital media. I think as more platforms and things have been introduced, they've been like, oh, yeah, let's do that. And then not really thought about who's doing it or what the purpose of it is. And I'm like, oh, we should probably have this, or, oh, we should probably have that. And, oh, we need like, oh, okay, well, we've got a social media person now, but also, oh, but they don't necessarily have enough time to do paid, and paid also means this. So let's just bring someone in to do all of that. And it's sort of been all cobbled together. That said, I work really closely with our paid acquisition manager to make sure that like we're not doing two completely separate things, because I think my fear when I first joined was like, I've got no idea what ads are running ever, but I've now made myself, like, I've forced myself in to be like, I need to know what you're saying. I'd say it's probably fair to say in the charity sector, the top jobs are filled with people who don't have that knowledge. And so you're there's so much managing up as well, that, and you have to have evidence for everything. You know, if you suggest a new idea, you have to come with all of this research and all of this pre-existing knowledge that you've just like scrambled together at the last minute of why it's a good idea and why, you know, I said, you know, social media is a playground and that's great, but oh my God, is it difficult to be like, maybe we should try a reel. Throw that out there. I'm like, oh, what? Like when I joined in March last year, and in May we did our first ever, Nolan's first ever Instagram Live. And like, it took me probably 7 or 8 weeks to get buy-in from all of the people that I needed before the go live date, to be like, is this actually, you know, are you sure we want to do it? Are you sure we don't just want to record a Zoom meeting? Like, oh my God, like Facebook Instagram had just added the donation button on an Instagram Live. I was like, this is such a good opportunity for us to test to see whether live donations works on a platform.
Did it work?
Yeah. Like, consider it. I mean, unfortunately, we had like so many technical difficulties. Like, so we have our patron is Olivia Coleman, and she is she's a star. She's amazing. She's exactly as lovely as she comes across on anything that you might have seen her in. But her internet failed her on that day, and that's just something that happens. And, you know, and she was a real sport. Like, she just rejoined as often as she could. And we managed to get, you know, an hour really of good conversation with her. And we raised, in the space of about 45 minutes, we raised like over 1,500 quid, which for our first ever attempt at something, you know, was amazing. You're just like, I wasn't expecting that at all. I was expecting like 30 people to join and for us to maybe raise 100 quid. Just, you know, because it's the first time I've ever done it. You're hoping that people are in and they're watching. It was May, so the weather was really good. We were in proper lockdown, so, you know, there were disadvantages and advantages. But yeah, we managed to get, like, I think at our peak we had about just under 300 people watching. And what was really great is that because the live donations were coming in, Olivia and Joe, who she was talking with, were like, oh my God, thank you so much, so-and-so, for your donation, which I think probably then inspired more people to be like, oh, okay, yeah, no, I'll do it. And, you know, it was one of those things that's like, I had faith that we should try it. Didn't know if it was going to work, but I was like, we just need to give it a go. How
do you manage to have like a work-life balance in social media when it just does not stop?
Not very well. I think because I use social media anyway, I'm like just always on it, and I know that it's I know that it's bad for me. And like, I see these memes of like, it's okay just to switch off and it's okay to delete these apps from your phone. I'm like, no, it's not.
It isn't, because what if I miss a trend and we have got to do the trend or something? What about if someone wants a Met meme the Met? What am I going to do for meme the Met?
I know. And that's the thing, is like, because then the worst thing for me, and this is probably more a pride and an ego thing than anything else, is that if someone comes in and says, oh, did you see this thing on Twitter? And if my answer is no, I'm like, oh my God, why do I have a job? They should fire me. You know, we're fortunate enough to sometimes have stories that are really positive and are of people who are thriving, and we go, oh yes, that's why I do this job, and that's why I'm on social media, because it means that I get to be the person to share that story, that good news. I get to be the person to be like, this child is 5 years post-transplant and has started school. That kind of stuff is really lovely, and you really do have to take a moment to sit with it and appreciate it and not go right on to the next thing. It's like, no, that's a physical person who, without Anthony Nolan, wouldn't be here. And we've, through my tiny, tiny little part of being involved in that organisation, have helped to make that happen. Obviously, on the flip side, you do then get the awful stories and the stories where it hasn't gone well. I know that most people, I think, have followed the story of Azalea Kane, the little baby,
yes,
who passed away in April. I had no work-life balance throughout that whole thing, because we were working really closely with the family. We were checking Instagram when we knew that, she was not going to make it. I was checking Instagram every day to be like, has it happened yet? Has it happened yet? We'd already spent loads of work time preparing the statement that we were going to release on the, when it did actually happen. And like, that stuff sucks and it is hard. And but we have we have really good support at work. And my manager was really mindful of that, of like, if you can't, like, take a break, stop and do something else for a minute, because writing basically an obituary before someone's died is really, really horrible. But she was very, very keen on me taking the break that I needed, and still is. Like, we haven't had to deal, fortunately, with something quite that rough since. I don't really want to ever again, but you just can never tell in this business. But she, even now, is very much like, you need to improve your work-life balance, because it doesn't stop. And because I'm on social media in the evening, like when I'm chilling out, I'll see something and be like, oh, that makes me think, work tomorrow, I need to do XYZ, or this story's just broken and it's relating to blood cancer or stem cell transplant or whatever. I must screenshot that or make sure I send it into like one of our team's channels to know, so that people are aware of it. And it's hard to be like, that can wait. It's 11 o'clock, go to bed. Like, it's still gonna be there at 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock. I don't think, social media and 9 to 5 do not go hand in hand. And so I find it really hard to stick to my contracted hours. And I think that comes from a discipline thing. That is only harder when you're not in the office.
Absolutely. Like, I think, well, it's good to know that, within your organization, there is somebody fighting for your corner to say, if you need a break, take the break. But also, it sounds like there are people within the organization that are there for mental health support, which is, good to hear, because you are dealing with literally life and death. So it's going to be hard. What has been the sort of biggest mistake you've made as a social media manager? And how did you fix it? Please tell me the most lurid thing. I will not mind.
This is so boring. It's not juicy at all. And I don't think, like, I'd love to be like, oh, I got really drunk and sent a sexy DM from the work account. So we managed to get tickets for someone who donated their stem cells to the final of the Euros this year. And I was obviously then really busy working on that night, because we were managing all of the comments and stuff that were coming in of the fact that we had sent this guy to the final. And I'd definitely forgotten which account I was logged into, and I was liking loads of like hilarious tweets about the football. But again, so boring and tame. I just don't think there's anything social media wise where I've done like a massive faux pas.
Touch wood.
Yeah, that's true. So there's basically plenty of time for me to fuck up.
Yes, there is. I'm not wishing that upon you. And I really hope it doesn't happen to you tomorrow. And then I get an email saying you jinxed me, bitch. How would you summarize your social media journey from where you started to where you are today?
So yeah, it's always meant a huge amount to me personally. So going into it as in a career, I think I'd been quite naive and like, oh, I can do this because I love social media. And actually, the demands that are put upon you as a social media manager or someone working in social are so huge that you do have to remind yourself why it's exciting and why it's fun. And I think that's something that I've definitely been mindful of, like carrying with me throughout my career, is like, you're in this because you do actually really like it as a platform and as a channel and as a whatever else it is. Like, you engage with it, you know what good looks like, you know what you would like to see from brands and people and whatever, and you can help make that happen for an organization that you care about. And so that's kind of where I am now. I think I've gone from that, where when I was working in the West End.
Yeah, it sounds like you've gone from like pedestrian to working in social, but it's been so clear to me the sense of pride that you have about working with Anthony Nolan and the vision that they have and how that inspires you. And I think that can be a lesson to loads of social media managers out there. Like, yes, the work is really hard. The work-life balance can be upturned in a way that you did not anticipate. But, if you are working for something or anything that you are very, very proud of and feel is worth it, and it will underline all the work that you're doing and all the stuff that you're doing. And, just hearing you talk about Anthony Nolan, and you have so much knowledge about it, and, you see the bigger picture along with the finer details. And that is really the job of a social media manager as well. Like, we are thinking from an emoji in a tweet to how that's going to reach a donation, like, or it's going to hit somebody, make someone buy a ticket or do something like that. And it's that kind of thing that you so clearly have. Anthony Nolan, very lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you. But no, I think it comes down to, I've always been really interested in human connection and how people communicate, and relationships and all of that sort of stuff. And I think that social media at its best is such an incredible tool for doing that, and for managing, for getting people to meet, or for conveying emotion and getting people engaged with a story, be it really, really happy or really shocking or whatever it is. It has real power, and I think that's something that I've always loved about it.
Now, where do you think the future of social media looks like for your industry?
Well, it's tricky because we need more money for it to be anything amazing. I think I would love to see more effort and resource put into social media teams. I think in terms of, by effort, I mean like more buy-in from people more senior to be like, actually, no, social media is something we really need to invest in. It's not an add-on. It's not something that comes at the end of, it's not an afterthought. Actually there's such scope and such potential to really succeed as a business if you're really social media focused. And I think, this is my first role in the charity sector, so I've only got 18 months knowledge, but certainly from conversations I've had, majority of charities are still a few steps behind. And some of that is to do with budgets, absolutely, but I think it's also to do with the people who are in the most senior and powerful positions being in the charity sector for such a long time that they don't really have any involvement or knowledge of social media trends, what's happening, what's new, what they can get involved with. And so they don't necessarily then think to go, oh, actually, yeah, maybe we should have a social media team of 5. Maybe we need a separate influencer marketing manager. Maybe we need a copywriter that's just social content. Maybe we need someone who's just creating content for social in terms of like in designing video content and all of that sort of stuff. That we've got a real kind of squad who are doing all of our social media and really taking it to that next level. It's not someone who's on their own trying to write content for 5 different channels that all have different algorithms or, ways of being successful and trying to be too many things at once. So I'd like to think that that's the future, the direction it's going in, is it's given a bit more respect and a bit more time, and a bit more understanding.
So they're quick fire, so you just have to think very instinctively. For me, it'll probably be one word. They are basically 1 word answers, 1 2 word answers, but I'm gonna be quick. Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
Text or voice notes?
Voice notes.
How many Finstas do you have?
None.
Zoom event or Twitter Spaces?
Oh, Twitter Spaces.
Quickest way to identify a social media manager?
Like, no patience.
If you could run anyone else's Twitter account, who would it be?
Innocent drinks.
If Princess Diana had a social media account, which one would she be better at? Pinterest or Instagram?
Oh, Pinterest.
That's it. Thank you so much. So that concludes our episode of Confessions with a Social Media Manager with Rachel Flenley from Anthony Nolan. Rachel, where can people find you?
So you can find me personally at Flendog _ on Instagram and Twitter. If you want to follow Anthony Nolan, that's Anthony Nolan Charity on Instagram or Anthony Nolan on Twitter. We are also on Facebook and LinkedIn. And basically, yes, if you are aged between 16 and 30, please consider joining the Stem Cell Register. If you go to anthonynolan.org, all of the information is there. If you're not able to join the register, please consider donating any money you may have. It will go towards funding life-saving research. Help save a life.